convener of the hashtag Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore, should be detained for 90 days.
And this follows the application filed by the Department of State Security Services seeking an order to detain the AAC presidential candidate pending the conclusion of its investigation.
The ex parte motion by the DSS is seeking the order of court to detain Mr. Sowore beyond the 48 hours of his arrest as required by law. Let's get some legal perspective to this developing issue. Lawyer Fred Nzeako is with me in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Many thanks.
Talking about this case now that we know will soon begin in Abuja now. The ex parte motion, for instance, as we begin, is it in order?
Well, SSS, State Security Services, was supposed to have gone to court earlier than now. If they knew they had intended to detain him beyond 48 hours. And then, because it was expected that once he was arrested, maximum 48 hours, he should be charged to court or be granted bail pending the conclusion of investigation. And then they have already breach of that provision. And going to court now, well, that seems to be the only option left to them if they had any intention to detain Sowore beyond now. And such ex parte order, they had no other choice than to approach the court.
But can it correct the seeming illegalities of his prolonged arrest? Can this intervention in the courts now correct?
It cannot correct it because already his fundamental right has been breached. And then he is there at the liberty of the State Security Services and not at the liberty of pronouncement of the courts or the Nigerian legal system. And then it's already a breach of his right. And of course, going to court at this point will not correct such breach because he has been in detention. He's gradually balling into 1 week. I think he was arrested on Saturday or thereabout, and today is Wednesday. Right. So he's held beyond the normal 48 hours. But now the SSS can claim that the courts were not functioning over the weekend, so that they had only heard him for Monday and Tuesday, officially working hours. So, but you cannot discount Saturday and Sunday that he had been accosted.
Right, but these are matters of urgency now. So let me tap your brains. What will the judge now have to decide upon today, seeing as the Sowore legal team will not, be in court to argue out, right? They've been shut out, so to speak, with this application.
Yes, with this application is now at the discretion of the judge to determine whether they have to prove to the judge why they have to detain him further. And then it depends on whether there's a prima facie case against him. Of course, the statement he had made to SSS would have been sent to the judge, and then those are some of the documents that the court will consider whether there's a prima facie case against him that will warrant further detention. And then if eventually, for example, in his statement that he said he was calling for an ethical revolution, which is different from the political revolution that the government is interpreting, if he's calling for a social reform of the fundamental way we do our things in Nigeria, the court will find no grounds to grant such a ex parte order. And
one last question at this point now would be in response to the outcry over this arrest and the other arrests associated with the Revolution March, is free speech now being endangered? Is this a new development? Is there constitutional backing to curtail free speech?
Well, the Sowore saga is giving an impression that that free speech is being endangered. But then it can also be looked at from the other end, because if the revolution they're talking about is the type that will push out the government in power, if it's the type that will amass armament violently to decimate the government, then it has crossed the red line. But now, the government has not defined the revolution in an appropriate manner, because revolution does not only mean a violent taking up arms against government. Revolution can mean fundamental change in the way we do things, in which case we can be talking about ethical revolution. You can also be talking about moral revolution, which we all need in Nigeria. So the definition of revolution is neither here nor there. The government has taken up the one that they choose, which is the political revolution of violent decimation of government, and leaving out what may be the intention of the marchers of this revolution,
right.
which is ethical revolution. And I believe that that's what we need in Nigeria.
Fred Ezeako, thank you so much for your insights on the
Many,
program.
many thanks.
Omoyele Sowore should be detained for 90 days.
This follows the application filed by the Department of State Service seeking an order to detain the AAC presidential candidate pending the conclusion of its investigation.
Now, the ex parte motion by the DSS is seeking the order of the court to detain Sowore beyond the 48 hours of his arrest required by law. Joining me now is a lawyer, Fred Nzako, to make us understand what the implication of all of these things will be. Good morning, Fred. Nice to have you join us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, the Habeas Corpus Act has prescribed that no one should be detained beyond 48 hours, and anyone that does that, it certainly will be against the law. As it is right now, we understand the federal government should even know better when it comes to these things. Should the government have taken these steps even before now?
Well, government reacted by picking up Sowore, and it was expected that since they picked him up on Saturday to frustrate the march on Monday, it was expected that by Monday they should have charged him to court. But today is Wednesday. They have approached the court for an order because they have held him beyond 48 hours. Therefore, they needed an order of court if they needed to hold him beyond 48 hours. But the natural question would be, are they supposed to hold him beyond 48 hours, and for what reasons? What are the prima facie evidence against him? What are the facts on ground that show that he needs to be held beyond 48 hours? Why can't he be granted bail if there is any issue? And what are the major issues? Government is saying that he treaded on the path of treason, therefore that he needed to be heard. If there are prima facie cases, evidence that he needs to be held beyond 48 hours, of course, the right thing for government to do is to get an order of court, because it would have been a breach of the provisions of the law if he was held longer than necessary without an order of court. And then that is why they have approached the court for an ex parte order. Ex parte means the other party will not be involved. You know, I mean, Sowore's legal team, because they are not put on notice. It's a single one-way traffic.
One way.
It's a one-way thing. They approach court, and then once they have to convince the court of the need to keep him longer.
The DSS had said initially that they have obtained some intelligence report that some organization and even individuals from even outside the country were also behind this or in support of this to destabilize government. If that is the case from the claim they have, would it be a good ground in court, or would it be a good case in court?
They have to espouse such case. Okay. They have to prove such case because there are many decided cases where the courts have said that it is not right to hide under national interest or national security to breach the constitutional fundamental rights of freedom of the citizen, freedom of expression,
and the rule of law,
freedom of association, and freedom of free speech. So the DSS has to prove to the court whatever intelligence they have said they have gathered. But whatever intelligence they have said they have gathered, they must be mindful of the fact that the freedom of the citizen must be respected.
All right, thank you very much, Fred Nzako, for giving us insight.